Welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, live for the next half hour. Join us as we provide you with all the scores, news, and updates to everything Franklin County sports. And now, here's your host, Bobby C.
Hello and welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I hope everyone's doing well here today. I'm Bobby C. We're so glad to be back in studio. You know, it's been a few weeks since we've last had a show between the holidays, and of course I made it pretty public where a lot of folks knew that I went through the COVID, so I had my own issues, and then of course the schools were having issues with COVID as well. So really it's been 3 weeks since we've had a chance to be able to give you a show of the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, and the good news is we're going to be able to give it to you here today. Want to say thank you to our underwriters. Thank you to Lisa Albert of Albert Hearing Services at alberthearing.com. Also by Franklin First Federal Credit Union at franklinfirst.org, and by Manny's TV and Appliance with locations on River Street and Route 9 in Hadley. Well, let's get things started. In girls basketball, it was the Turners Falls defense stepping up against the Mohawk girls in a game that happened a week ago Tuesday. And I got to tell you, for 3 quarters, Mohawk's Stella Clark really kept her team in the game. She ended up scoring 21 for the Warriors, but in the end, they ended up getting beat by Turners Falls, who did a really nice job, led by Emily Young with 15 points. Maddie Lamatanian ended up with 9. Taylor Green and Abby Holloway each had 8 points in the win for Turners Falls. Well, East Hampton took on the Pioneer girls, and it was all East Hampton in this one. Yep, they ended up suffocating. Pretty much the defense was great throughout the game as they held Pioneer to only 23 points a week ago Tuesday. Haley Ring, well, she ended up with 7 points. Carolyn Ring, she ended up with 6. And Sophia Walker ended up with 5 points in the loss for Pioneer. Well, the Frontier girls, they picked up a big win against another powerhouse in our area, and that is the Palmer girls. Final score was 44-42. In a battle of first place in the Franklin County North, the Red Hawks ended up going ahead after 3 quarters, 35-27, but hey, they just hung on for that 2-point win that happened over at Goodnoe Gymnasium last Tuesday night. Want you to know that Kylie LaFord, she ended up leading the way with 15 points for Frontier. Also, Caitlin Mackin ended up with 13. Hannah Mackin ended up with 6 in the victory for Frontier. Well, Mohawk, they had to really lock things down a little bit in their game that they had on Thursday. Another girls' game, but Stella Clark continued her hot play as she ended up pouring in 20 points for her team, and including 14 of those that she had in the first half. Maya LaSure ended up with 8 points, and they picked up a nice win, so congratulations to them as they ended up winning their game on Thursday night against the folks down in East Hampton. Well, in boys hockey, it was Longmeadow taking on Greenfield. That was on Thursday night. And let me tell you, it was a true game of talent by this Longmeadow team. And I want folks to know, Longmeadow is considered the #1 seeded team in all of Western Mass. Now, the good news is that in league play, Greenfield is undefeated on the year, but they went up against a big-time opponent. Now think about this. This was their first game that they had at the time in 15 days. They had to go play against the #1 seeded team in all of Western Mass, and the final score wasn't that bad. Final score was 4-1. Yep, senior defenseman Kevin Bauman, well, he delivered the lone goal for Greenfield that was assisted by Shane Prusak and also Ethan Bryant. Once again, excuse me, it was Longmeadow picking up the 4-1 win. Well, in boys basketball, Smith Academy took on Turners Falls, and their stifling defense really was the tail of the game. I mean, how do you not say that their defense didn't do a good job when they held a team to 16 points? That's right. The Smith Academy boys basketball team literally were leading after the first half 23-0. Yep, they held Turners to no points for the first half. Then Turner scored 16 in the second. Levin Prondecki, him and Brendan Truesdell, well, they ended up with 6 points apiece in the loss. but it was all Smith Academy last Thursday. Hopkins Academy, they ended up playing against Pioneer, and two powerhouses getting together on the court. And it was all Hopkins in this one as they won 74-62. They picked up the big win. And I must say that Andrew Siaglo ended up with 30 points for his Hopkins team. Cody West ended up with 15. Excuse me. And Cam Wade ended up with 14 points. Patrick Fitzgibbons ended up with 11. Tell you what, when you got four guys who can score in double figures, and you can be able to lock down on defense and hold a powerhouse team that was averaging 70 points a game to 62, that is a big help. And that's exactly what Hopkins was able to do. Now, Josh Wood, he ended up with 17 for the Panthers. Braden Fair, 14. Jaden Fox finished with 9. Sean Allen and Kurt Redeker each had 6 in the loss for Pioneer. Well, Frontier, they ended up getting a big lump on the head by the folks up there in Lenox. Yep. Want to talk about cashing in? The Millionaires ended up cashing in with a 65-47 victory. There you go, John Meisner. That is a great dad joke right there for you. Lenox jumped out to that 19-7 lead after one quarter, extended to 36-22 at halftime, ultimately defeating Frontier in Lenox on Thursday. Now, Patrick Boyden, Dante Reggiano, they ended up with 9 apiece for Frontier. Also, Eric Brown and Max Millette, they both had 7 in the loss for Frontier. Well, Greenfield Girls, they ended up taking on the Hopkins Academy Girls in a game that they had on Thursday night. Greenfield Girls came up big. Final score was 52-32. You know, the one thing that they loved is the fact that they were able to run, and that's exactly what Coach Hickey says that his team needs to do if they want to be able to win games this year. They're going to have to utilize transition work to be able to get victories. Well, that's exactly what they did. They ran the court. Lily Kackelmeyer ended up with 16 points. Maddie Kacheski, Azamina Sesajanin, they each had 12. Also, Josie Cloutier ended up with 6 in the win for Greenfield. Well, the Torners girls, they took on Smith Academy. They had a game on Thursday night down in Hatfield. Final score was 52-31. Turner's basketball, they ended up really turning up things over the last couple of weeks. Matter of fact, they were up 33-19 at halftime, and they never looked back. Taylor Green, she ended up with 13 points. Also, Lily Spira had 12, Maddie Lamatanian with 10, Emily Young and Abby Holloway each had 8. Great balanced scoring right there by the Thunder. Well, the Franklin County Tech girls, they took on the Pioneer girls. What a game that was on Thursday night. Final score was 40-36. Franklin County Tech Eagles have been practicing their free throws, and boy, they needed it when it came down to the fourth quarter in this one, as they made 12 free throws in that final frame. And by the way, they were down going into the fourth quarter. So this was a big comeback for the Franklin County Tech girls. Leah Chapman ended up with 16, Caitlin Trudeau with 9, Kendra Campbell ended up with 7, Caroline Ring, she ended up with 11 for Pioneer, Haley Ring with 10, and Sophia Walker with 6. I can tell you something right now. These girls from the Franklin County Tech, they're improving, but those girls up at Pioneer are really turning things around here in the second half of the season. Well, I want to let you know that there was some Alpine skiing that went on, and that happened last Thursday night. The Alpine ski season officially got underway on Thursday, and it was over at Berkshire East where 3 of the Mohawk girls placed in the top 5. Emmy Sissom, she was the winner on the girls' side. Not far behind was teammate Addie Loomis. She ended up being second. Joining Sissom and Loomis was also Ellie Pinkham. She ended up 4th overall. On the boys' side, Liam Green, he had the best Mohawk time. He was 4th overall. Also, Wyatt Sissom, Alex Scribner, as well as Phineas Tutman. They all made it into the top 20. Sissom was 11th. Scribner was 16th, and Tutman ended up coming in 20th place. Well, I must tell you folks that one of the things that we have enjoyed here on the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report is seeing how well these kids have improved. And the one thing that we're going to talk about later in this show are where some of these folks are getting ready to get to the next level. What does that mean? Next level. Next level means college. We got some great stories we're going to share with you here on the show. Well, leading 32-23 at halftime, the Franklin County Tech boys pulled off a nice win on Thursday. Boy, they really took it to the PVCICS down in Springfield. Final score was 71-30. Ty Sadowski, 18 points. Gabe Tomasi, Robbie Murphy each had 13. Vinny Renaud had 12. Noah Ostakaitis ended up with 9. Solid performance. Think about it. A 41-point loss where the Tech boys came up big. Well, in boys wrestling, it was the Franklin County Tech boys taking on Hampshire. And I'm going to share something with you. And this is how things work in wrestling and in swimming and also in golf. And I want you to hear this on our show. Franklin County Tech end up beating Hampshire 42-12. But here's the thing. Josh Burnell was the only winner for the Franklin County Tech in way of a pin. Yep, he ended up winning by a pin. But all the rest were all forfeits by Hampshire. So on paper, they ended up winning really 12-6. But because of all the forfeits, the Tech school wins 42-12. It's just something I wanted you to know about how things work in wrestling. Well, in boys and girls swimming, it's the same type of deal. And let me tell you, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Turners Falls team because they're going up against big competition with a small squad. And that's exactly what happens. If you can't fill, you still got to be able to run all those swimming matches that they have, and that's exactly what happened in this situation. Let's put it this way. Amherst boys picked up a win over Turners, 75-10. Amherst girls, they ended up beating the Turners girls, 74-19. But that doesn't really show that way when I announce all of these winners. But it's because of the way it works. Nick Martin, he was the lone Turner swimmer to come away with a first-place finish. He ended up winning the 100 free. It was his personal best, by the way, at 1 minute and 2 seconds. This season has been one of those co-op years where they have now been able to add students from the Franklin County Tech and Frontier to help with the Turners' numbers. Now, let's talk about other winners that are winning with this particular Turners team. Nick Martin ended up taking third place in the 200 free. Desmond Wallace, he had third in the 100 back. He had second in the 50 free. Matt Sibley, third place in the 100 breast and fourth in the 50 free. Multiple girls won for Turners even though they ended up losing big. Lillian Poirier, third place in the 100 back. Leah Gump ended up second place in the 200 free, third in the 100 fly. Sophia McComb ended up second place in the 200 individual medley, second in the 100 backstroke. Also, Bree Kempf ended up third in the 50 free and third in the 100 breast. The relay team of Poirier, McComb, Gump, and Gudabani ended up third place in the 200 medley. Also, they ended up taking third in the 200 free relay. So you heard all these winners and you said, well, how did they only get 19 points? Problem is, so many more swimmers on Amherst than there were on the Turners team. And it's just like in golf and also in wrestling, you have to forfeit those matches. Boys basketball, Mount Greylock took on Turners Falls. And you want to talk about a stifling defense? That's exactly what Mount Greylock has up there in the Berkshires. And let me tell you, Turners only scored 22 in the game. Yep, 22 points. Mount Greylock ends up with a 54-22 win. Levin Prondecki, he pretty much was the offense for his team. He scored 18 of the 22 points for his team. Well, in boys hockey, that happened on Saturday, where one of our big guys over here on our show, Philippe Simon, was running the camera. I'm going to tell you something. The rink is cold, man. That is a chilly rink over there. Turn on the heat. Oh, I can't turn on the heat. Got a nice rink. That's right. You don't want to be like Frosty. You don't want to melt. Well, let me tell you, there was a lot of chilling going on, and all the chilling went in the way of the Green Wave as they picked up a 6-3 win over East Hampton. Greenfield is now 5-3 on the season, but they're 5-0 in league play. Greenfield led 2-1 after one period, made it 4-1 after two, and eventually picked up the 6-3 victory. Looks like Matt Garvin, Sammy Knight, Matt Lavoine, Trevor Kacheski, they all had goals for Greenfield. Also, we can't forget that Prusak, Shane, ended up having assists with Knight and Jake Croto. They each had 2. Single helpers included guys like Kevin Bauman, MJ Pollan, and Ethan Bryant. Greenfield goalie Josh Bordeaux, he ended up with 19 saves between the pipes. And once again, Greenfield with that victory on Saturday night at the rink in Greenfield. Girls basketball, Frontier Girls, easy win over Ware, 63-21 over the weekend. They built up a 20-6 lead after one quarter, and they just went on from there. Matter of fact, they are 5-2 on the year, and they're 3-0 in league play. Tell you, Kylie LaFord has had a great season so far for her team. She poured in 25. She had 4 3-pointers. Frontier led 35-10 at halftime. We also want folks to know that Haley Hutkowski, she ended up with double figures with 10 points. Abigail Howard ended up with 8. Delaney Fifield ended up with 6. And Candace Wells Robinson ended up with 5 in the win for Frontier. Well, in boys wrestling, turned out to be a pretty nice weekend for a couple of our locals. Congratulations goes out to Mohawk's William Van Fleet. Him and Franklin County Tech's Josh Burnell had quite a weekend in the Berkshires at a special tournament. It's called the Taconic Invitational, and it was held in Pittsfield on Saturday. Van Vliet, well, he's only a sophomore, and he ended up coasting right through the 220-pound weight class, and he ended up first place over the weekend. Matter of fact, he helped his team to be able to capture 13th place in that tournament. Josh Burnell, a senior at the Franklin County Tech, was a winner in the 145-pound weight class, and he ended up helping his team to a 12th place finish. We also know that there was some wrestling that went on between Greater Lowell as they took on Frontier. The only 2 winners for Frontier in that 48-12 loss was Peyton Sladowski, him and Giovanni Cabrera. They both ended up with wins. Well, on a game that happened last night on Bear Country 95.3, this is sort of a heartbreaker of our show here today. Smith Academy down 15 going into the 4th quarter last night to Greenfield. Ended up coming back, scored 24 4th quarter points to Greenfield's 5, and Smith Academy picked up a 52-48 win over Greenfield. And I must tell you, they did not play very well. They missed 13 free throws, Smith Academy, and still ended up picking up a 4-point win, down by 15 after 3 quarters. It was truly a huge collapse for the Green Wave. After coming off a big win that they ended up having against Hopkins Academy, we would have thought that this would have been something that would have been sweet to come over and knock off Smith Academy. Well, things looked great through the first 24 minutes, but the last 8, it was all Falcons, and they won. And I must say that David Carey did have a good game with 17 points. There were 3 crucial free throws that he needed to make to tie the game at 48-48. He did that. But his team couldn't hold on for the win. Also, Brendan Driscoll, he ended up with 10 points. Caleb Murray ended up with 7. Head coach Matt Zaneri from Smith Academy said that the bottom line is that we really picked up the intensity on the defensive end. We were making shots, and all of a sudden things were turning our way. That's exactly what happened. And yes, it was a very tough loss for the Green Wave last night. Well, Frontier had no problem with their game against Southwick in boys basketball last night. They ended up pulling away with a 70-31 win. Matter of fact, Ben Barshevsky said, quote, "The first half was the best half of basketball we've played all year." Ian Spearance, Eric Brown, Tyler Dubriel, they all had 12 for the Red Hawks. Patrick Boyden with 7, Dylan Martin, Matt Seacard, and David Gray, they all had 6 in the win for Frontier. Well, the one thing that we want folks to know is the fact that the mask mandate has been officially set up through the MIAA. Their executive director, Robert Baldwin, said that this is the deal. Even though, and this is where I want to throw this in, even though the MIAA Basketball Commission voted 15-3 in favor of officials and players having an option to wear masks, well, their executive director said that, quote, and this is very important, "This is not the time to send mixed messages regarding masking guidelines to the membership, and the Department of Education and Secondary Education recently extended their mask requirement for all K-12 public schools in the state of Massachusetts to continue through February 28th. Now, we, as a school who has sports, and yes, we do have our membership through the MIAA, we decided that co-curricular activities such as sports should be consistent with the protocols of what takes place during the day in the classroom. So, let's recap and bring it in. Yes, the MIAA Basketball Committee voted 15-3 that it should be an official or the player's option to be able to wear a mask. It was nullified by their executive director, who said masks will be worn at least until February 28th. That is when they will revisit. Now, this is the Department of Education and Secondary Education. They will revisit on what's going to happen, and the MIAA is going to stick with the guidelines of what is happening with the DESE. Well, I told you that what we were going to do is we were going to talk about some of these college students as they get ready to get to the next level, but they get to enjoy their senior year first before they get ready. What they did was they ended up doing their commitments to colleges. Greenfield's Tess Rancourt, she hasn't been doing track and field very long, but I'll tell you right now, if you look at the way she's been able to play, she's broken records at Greenfield High School. She had a chance to visit 3 schools, and she decided that between Bryant, UMass Lowell, and Merrimack, that she was going to go to Merrimack. She says that it worked out really well for her, and the best part is Merrimack College is a Division I track and field school. So this young lady who is finishing up her senior year at Greenfield High School after breaking the record is being able to try to break a record again this spring and getting ready to be able to compete at a Division I level. So congratulations to Tess Rancourt. Yep, she'll be arriving in North Andover in the fall, and she's excited to be able to try to break her record at GHS. Well, Jack Vasilio has been the big stud when it comes to track and field, especially pole vaulting for Frontier. He just signed a letter of intent. He's going to Clemson. He'll be going to Clemson University. Oh yeah, Division I, Clemson University is where he will compete. By the way, he was able to make that announcement last month. Of course, we were off for 3 weeks because of everything that's happened with sports in our area, and of course, a little illness. But yep, Vasilio had 3 visits this fall. Clemson, also Memphis, and Kansas. And he decided to go with Clemson. They got a very good program down there. He will start as their pole vault guy when he gets to college. He still has to enjoy another spring at Frontier before he heads down south. So congratulations to Jack Vasilio. Him and Tess Rancourt, Division I in track and field. Great stuff. All right. News came out as we get ready to wind things down here today that the Frontier Boys Volleyball is a go for 2022. That's right. For 2022, there will be a boys volleyball team. That is a huge deal. People are asking, will Sean McDonald, the coach of the girls, will he be the coach of the boys? The answer is no. He is the coach of the Athol boys team. They will be looking for a brand new coach, and they will be starting a new program. Big interest in boys volleyball down at Frontier. So think about this, folks. We're adding another sports program to the Frontier menu. Thank God for Frontier. They're the team that seems to be able to hold all of their sports together intact very well with great participation. You know, as we get ready to wind down the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report here today, I want to let folks know a couple things. One of the big things I want to share with everyone here today is the fact that we're going through a pandemic still. Now, you saw that the MIAA, their basketball committee, voted 15-3 to leave it as optional for the team to be able to have players or officials wear masks. But the executive director, who knows what's going on, met with a doctor, ended up finding out what was going on with the Department of Education and Secondary Education, decided that, hey, no, we're not going to do that. We are going to follow the science. We are going to follow them. So till February 28th, masks will be required in all gymnasiums or any indoor that is happening for sports in Massachusetts, including hockey. It's a little bit different if you go to an Alpine Skiing event up at Berkshire East. You're probably okay. You're outside. But indoors, this is the mandate. Also, I want to let folks know that if you have an opportunity to support your local athletes, do it. Whether it's through community access television, through listening to it on the radio, or attending as a fan. We need your support for our athletes, especially right now. Thank you to Franklin First Federal Credit Union, Manny's TV and Appliance, and Albert Hearing Services. Amazing job done by them to be able to help us. John Meisner, Philippe Simone, thank you, gentlemen. Glad to be able to be back in studio after a 3-week layoff. Hopefully we're back into a good trend here again. So until we meet again next week for another edition of the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, I'm Bobby C., and please take care of yourself and each other as we try to get through this pandemic all together as one. Have a great one, everyone.